Saudi Arabia has issued $5 billion in bonds in Sukuk in its first foray into international debt markets since last November. It also offered to buy back more than $15 billion in bonds due between now and 2026. Simone Foxman has more. So quite a bit of a shift then in strategy, right?
Well, it seems to really be about continuing its engagement with international debt markets. Sure, Saudi Arabia has made a lot of money on higher oil prices this year, but this is, as you pointed out, the first foray in international debt markets since last November. Gulf borrowers haven't been very busy this year, in part because of those oil revenues. But, Saudi Arabia needing to stay engaged in the market in the long term. It has lots of plans to keep building stuff ahead. And so, yes, while we are retiring potentially some nearer-term debt, pushing out the duration, this gets it into play, gets it in the mind of international investors. I want to point out what we've seen in Saudi bonds recently, particularly looking at your 10-year debt. We have a GTV Go showing this. We've seen a particular run-up in yields over the last couple of months. No sign from the Fed that may be changing anytime soon. So maybe a desire to kind of get in while we're still at these 5.2% yields before we see anything move even higher.
And Abu Dhabi, Simone, good to see you. Good to have you back. Abu Dhabi says it will transfer the ownership of the state carrier Etihad to the sovereign wealth fund ADQ. Now, what's the thinking behind that, and maybe what are the ramifications?
Yeah, officially, this part of a policy that Abu Dhabi has had to try and make itself a transport hub. ADQ already owns a lot of aviation assets. Wizz Air Abu Dhabi, it's a majority stakeholder there. It actually purchased as well some of Etihad's operational assets last year. And then earlier this week, it did a transaction, or made an offer for a transaction, rather, that would leave it with a 59% share in the publicly traded company Abu Dhabi Aviation. We've seen shares spike in the last couple of days on that. Also important, the succession questions around Tony Douglas, the CEO of Etihad. There's been some speculation, significant speculation, that he may go and try to lead a new Saudi carrier. If he does leave, it would be helpful probably to have someone with this overall vision, some fund with this overall vision, being able to determine the future of Etihad.
And then Australia has ended its recognition of West Jerusalem as the Israeli capital. What's behind that?
Yeah, Foreign Minister Penny Wong calling this decision a cynical play by the Morrison government, the previous government, to win a by-election. They described the conflict and distress that this had created in the international community. They hadn't actually physically moved the embassy from Tel Aviv, but this mostly a rhetorical decision rather than one that actually has a huge impact on the ground. This really underscores a lot of the international concern about the policies that Israel has had over the last couple of years in terms of trying to find a peace agreement with the Palestinians. This is something that is a core issue for Yair Lapid in the upcoming elections. He is essentially very critical of Benjamin Netanyahu, the previous prime minister, for what he had done, some of the hardline policies that he had adopted over the past couple of years. Does this move the needle in the elections? That probably not the case, however.